the reporting sections and the analytics. We're going to specifically look at the discovery survey reporting and understanding what the reports are telling us, like understanding what our results are and how Bucket calculates, and that'll help you in your decision making as you start looking at your own data. And we'll take a brief look at the reporting part of the segmentation funnel, but we are going to spend most of our time looking at analyzing the results of our discovery surveys. So just to kind of give you an idea of what we're going to do here today, first of all, we're going to at the end of the webinar, we're going to do a oh my goodness, my brain is halfway working. We're going to do an invitation for you to schedule a call with a bucket specialist. That could be either myself or another one of our experts here. And what we'll do then, if you decide you want to get on a call with one of our specialists, do a one-on-one, we'll jump on the phone with you and walk you through whatever your issue is. It could be looking at your reports, your analytics, if you want someone to help you kind of look at some of that stuff with you, or just anything else that you might need assistance with inside of bucket.io. And so at the end of this call, what I'll do is I'll get out a link and you can go and schedule that call with us. But as for this call right now, the main things that we're going to be looking at, like I said, is we're going to be analyzing discovery survey responses. I've got a couple of discovery surveys already populated that we'll be able to look at, and I'll be able to show you all the different features and reporting capabilities. We're going to take a look at the word cloud and see how to use that, and kind of like some adjustments that you can make to get the most out of your own word clouds. And then I'm going to show you how to export your responses into a spreadsheet if you need it for further use, and how to kind of look at and read what Bucket gives you, and some of the scoring that we use to help you read those responses better. So without further ado, let's jump right into this. Go ahead to, if I'm talking and if you have a question, you can go ahead and put that in the chat. And if a bunch of questions spike on a certain subject, we can stop and answer those. Otherwise, we will definitely have a Q&A at the end. And like I said before, we'll give you an opportunity to schedule a one-on-one call with a bucket specialist if you continue to have questions or need further assistance. So let's jump into a discovery survey. I'm going to go back. I'm coming over here to bucket.io, and to obviously to get to your discover surveys, you will click discover at the top. That'll take you to all of your surveys that you have here in Bucket. And if you haven't been on any of our other webinars, and if you haven't even had a chance to build your first discovery survey, let's take a look at what I'm talking about. Like, what does a discovery survey look like? And just so we can kind of, everyone can get on the same page here, we'll take a look at a completed one, and then we'll just kind of look around in the back for just a few seconds, and then we'll dive straight into the reports. Let's see if this is going to work. Is it going to work? All right, here we are. So as you can see, this is a basic survey. We go straight to the first question, which we start off here with just an open-ended question. Answer. So once the user puts the answer in, they're taken to another question. In this case, it's a radio button where they can only choose one answer, and then they're taken to a thank you page where they can go off and, in this case, schedule a call. So that's, again, this is the front end, just to kind of make sure everyone's on the same page of what we're talking about with a discovery survey, right? This is where we're asking questions of our audience so we can gain insight from them. I'm going to close this now, and let's just take a real quick look at what this looks like in the background. As you can see here, where we just have our questions set up. We have in some cases, we'll do a contact information page, And just real quick, just to cut, basically, if you've seen all this stuff before, I apologize, but I just want to make sure everyone's on the same page. That's why I'm walking through this step. So you've got your contact information page, which you can have ask for an email address, you can ask for a phone number, and a couple of other, name and another information field if you like. And then again, like we just saw, you can have a customized thank you page. Okay? So this is the discovery survey. And now what we're going to do here is let's jump back out and take a look at what happens when people start to fill these things in. I've got this one here with about 80 responses in it. And so to get to the reporting section of your discovery survey, what you'll do is you'll obviously locate the one you want to look at, and then you'll come in here and click on the analytics link. Sorry, I had to get a little sip of water there. Now, the first thing Bucket shows you when you come into your analytics is the performance of your survey. In this case, you can see that the survey itself has had 133 views. It's had 80 responses, so about a 60% response rate. So when people come in, 60% of those people start taking the survey. And out of those 80 people that have started the survey, 100% of them have completed it. Now, we don't have an opt-in screen on this particular survey where we would ask for an email or a phone number. So that's going to be at 0. But as you can see here, if you've got a survey up and you do, let's say you do ask for an opt-in rate, or you ask for an email or a phone number, you'll be able to tell if what percentage of people are not filling that thing out. And if it's a relatively low number, so let's say we've got 100 people completing our survey, let's say less than 20% of them are giving us their name and email address. Well, at that point, we would know, hey, you know what? Why don't we go in and customize the, contact information page here. I'm going to be jumping around a little bit, and so if I lose you, feel free to throw your hands up in the chat, and Mr. EA will let me know. But back to what I was talking about. So let's say you had a very low opt-in rate, and your reporting says, hey, there's only 20% of the people are giving their email and phone number. What you would want to do then is come back over here and possibly enter some better information in the lead capture screen, right? So if it's got a low rate, then maybe you come in here and throw in an image or a video and explain to them, or just do a better job explaining why you're asking for their contact information. Again, those numbers are in front of you so that you can make these types of decisions. So I'm going to jump back out, and let's go back into the report. All right, so we've taken a look at the performance numbers, right? We can see kind of what's happening inside of the survey based on these numbers here. Like, is it working? Are people following through and going through it? If not, we're able to go in and identify what's wrong. One of the other things that you can do to really dial in what might be happening in your survey is at the conversion statistics of each particular question, right? So what we can see here is that, again, in this case, we've got 100% of the people are following through and answering the questions. But let's say you see a drop-off before you even get to the opt-in screen. What if one of these questions has a low conversion rate? Let's say we've got 79 people come through, and 79 people answer this first question, or question number 2. But what if we have a number 3 question where only 50% of the people answer that? Well, then we know, obviously, in that case, that we either need to adjust the question or remove it completely. In the case here, we might even make the case that 60% we should be expecting 100% of the people to answer this survey, right? And instead of 60%, what's happening to the other 40% of the people? In that case, we might think, hey, maybe we ask a better question on the front, right? Or maybe we add a welcome screen to the front, and warm people up to what they're about to do, why they're answering these questions, and explain it a little bit better so that we can improve that number. So hopefully, real quick, this is all. Can we just get a real quick check, EA, if all this is making sense so far, or if I'm moving too quickly through this part? I'm just going to check the chat here. If you could, just real quick, just let me know if this is making sense, or if there's anything that I maybe you're not understanding.
Hey, Jeremy, it's EA here. I was on mute. Sorry about that.
No problem.
One of the main questions that we're getting from people right now is questions about editing their survey. I think people are following along with you and talking about editing a question.
Mm-hmm.
If they edit one of the questions in their survey, will they lose their data?
Oh yeah, for sure. So what you won't do is you won't make an edit to the exact survey with the same link. So if you've got a survey that you're wanting to make adjustments on, and it's got responses in it, you're definitely going to want to create a copy of that survey and make the adjustments that you're wanting to make, and then use the new link for any new survey takers that as you market the new one, you'll want to use the new link. That's a great question, because I am making it sound like, oh, you'll want to adjust it, and you do. It'll be again, it'll be a very similar survey, but it will definitely be a new one with new information inside of it. So great question.
Aside from that, I think you can keep going, Jeremy.
Sounds good. So now that we've kind of taken a look at performance, the main thing here is, again, having a survey that does its job, which is to get people to take it. Once we've kind of crossed that, the next step here is to start looking at the information that's coming through, right? And how do we use that in our marketing? How do we get the most out of it? So, excuse me. The first tool that bucket.io gives you in understanding the information that's coming into your survey is the word cloud. And for those of you who are not familiar with how a word cloud works, you'll notice here you've got some words that are tiny and some words that are the opposite of tiny. They're large and kind of in your face. What that means is the larger the word is, the more times it was used by your responders through in each response. So we can see here the word how, and bucket.io and Zapier and integration. Some of these words are much bigger than some of these smaller ones like YouTube or Wink, or some of these other kind of smaller words. So and kind of mentioning some of these words, what you always want to do is, if you start seeing words that don't make a lot of sense at the top here, some of these bigger words like am and through and stuff like that, what you can do is come over here to this drop down that says words, and you can actually start removing some of the words. So we've got getting, am. Again, you can just kind of come through here and pull out some of the words, some of those extra words like the, am, and stuff like that. And then what will happen is, as you come in, now you can see it's a lot different. Right now, Zapier is huge, survey is huge, and if you can't tell already, this is a survey that we had sent out to people using Bucket, asking them, hey, what do you need help with, right? And so these are some of the things that are coming in. Setting up Zapier is probably one of the bigger ones. Getting a survey set up, the funnel, and adding pixels and having tech issues. As you can see here, now I'm starting to, as I start to look at this survey, I'm able to quickly say, oh man, we definitely need to make something to the effect of help with Zapier or help with surveys, or the funnels. And so this is what you'll be able to do with your own information that's coming back from your surveys. As you start getting responses in, you'll start noticing the words that are coming in, and you'll be able to use those. You can treat them like buzzwords, or start using them as kind of placemakers or placeholders while you're trying to identify what are the most important things that your own audience is telling you or asking you in your survey. Okay, so that's how the word cloud works. Another thing that you can do to kind of adjust the word cloud and get a better idea of what's happening inside of it is you can choose just the hypers or add the hypers and non-hypers. What that means is the type of responses that are coming in. There's what's called a hyper, which is someone who has entered a lot of information and someone who you really need to pay attention to. The non-hypers are the people that maybe typed in a handful of words that possibly paid less attention to or use in a different manner than you would with your hyper responses. So you can have them both included, or you can just include the hyper responses by simply clicking this checkbox. It defaults at hypers only. Again, you can turn on both by checking the box. Another thing you can do to really dial in the words is to use the slider to kind of take out some of the words, which will add weight to the words being used more than others, right? So you can see here as I dial the words down a little bit, it starts pushing other ones to the front. And let's say we take out the word how, because that's the big one. And then maybe we take out getting. And then again, you can start seeing what's happening once you dial back some of the words. Some different ones start making their ways to the front. So it's all just basically bucket.io doing these calculations for you, so you're not staring at a blob of text or a bunch of fields in a spreadsheet trying to figure out which word or words are kind of really standing out. Bucket does that for you with this word cloud. And that's how the word cloud works. So now that we've looked at, again, we've looked at our performance numbers, we've looked at the word cloud, the next big section of your analytics for your discovery surveys is in the responses themselves, okay? So these are where you're actually going to be able to add context to the word cloud, right? Here's where you're actually going to be able to read each of the open-ended responses from your your survey takers. And as you can see here, you're able to each of your other responses, each of your, let's say, demographic questions or grease the wheels questions, or maybe even product type questions, any other question that you have in your survey, you're able to tie it to the actual response, right? So you can see, well, the person that's having this issue is also someone in this demographic and answered these other questions. You'll also notice on this far left column what's called a hyperscore. This score pretty much tells you how much attention you need to pay to a specific response. Again, the responses that are that have the most words written in them, where the person spent the most time telling you or answering your open-ended question, Bucket automatically assigns that person a larger score, right? So this one here versus this just want to ask some techie questions versus someone who actually tells you what techie questions they're having. As you can see, Bucket automatically assigns the person with the bigger response a greater score. Now, I talked earlier about having email addresses and phone numbers on your contact information page. If you use those, if you use email and you use the phone number, not only can you collect that information from your audience, but bucket.io will also factor those things into this hyperscoring as part of the analysis. So if someone puts in their phone number and email address, bucket.io is going to immediately give that person a higher score. It's not going to take somebody who, down here says Zapier connection, automatically give them a score high enough to compete with one of these larger ones, but it will definitely help you determine, again, how much of that response you need to pay attention to. So we're looking in this section now. Does anyone have any questions about actually looking through the responses and what is available and what you can or can't do in this section?
The main one outstanding question that we've gotten in this section, Jeremy, has been really about combining, as if you have the ability to combine word clouds and combine responses from multiple surveys.
Okay, so make sure I understand the question. So if you've got two surveys, you're wondering, and I think I know where this kind of stems from. So you're asking is, can I take survey 1 and combine it with the responses from survey 2 to get a better,
Correct.
a bigger word
cloud? That is the question. Yes.
Yeah. So right now there is not the ability to combine the two surveys together. What you can do is you can, as far as like to create a word cloud in Bucket, right? Like I can't take survey 1 and stick it in survey 2 and have all of a sudden, a word cloud of the combination of the two. What you can do is download each survey, and where it says download CSV up here, this will create a spreadsheet for you. And so you can download the spreadsheet from survey number 1 and download the spreadsheet from survey number 2 and combine those together. So if you wanted to analyze the two reports together, this would be a great way to do it. You would just download both, and possibly what you'd want to do if you did make adjustments like to your question or anything like that, what you'd probably want to do is also create another column in the spreadsheet. And the only reason I'm not downloading it now is I don't have Excel, and it like causes my computer just to go nuts. But what you would do is all the information, like the hyperscore, all the questions, everything stays together, so that you could actually put them, open both spreadsheets and combine them into one. What I would do in that case, if I was doing that, is I would create another column and call it, survey. And then survey 1, I would put in that column a number 1, and then for survey 2, I would put in that column survey 2, just so you would have the differences there, if there weren't any differences in the actual survey itself. Does that make sense? Did I answer that question?
Yep, we're getting some positive responses on that, so yes, I think you did answer it.
Okay.
One other final question for you, Jeremy, and then I think we can move on. We're getting quite a few people asking if bucket.io integrates with Infusionsoft, if you need it, if it integrates with lead pages and the like. So kind of what's the story there? Does it integrate with all those tools? Do you actually need those other tools if you're using bucket.io?
Sure. So to answer your question, yes, Bucket does integrate with like Infusionsoft or MailChimp or ActiveCampaign or whatever your email service provider is. It definitely does that, and the way it's done, I'll do just like a real brief walkthrough on how to set that up. But to answer the question, yes, you can connect bucket.io to almost any email service provider like Infusionsoft or ActiveCampaign through Zapier. For something like lead pages or ClickFunnels or like a landing page builder, Unbounced, you can connect Bucket to that using the button feature, where you could have the landing page on like lead pages or ClickFunnels, and just use the use a button. If you just wanted to throw a button on there could keep using the lead or the landing page software, but and let me just pop this open real quick just so you can see. Bucket.io does have a landing page builder inside of it, so that you really don't need like a lead pages or a ClickFunnels unless you absolutely want to use their landing page. You could literally come in and you see where I've got welcome. I just clicked on welcome page. I'm going to actually back that up real quick. See where I grab this welcome page and I drag it over here. I can build a landing page just like you can in with a headline and the copy on it and the action button on it, just like you could if you had lead pages, right? So to answer your question, yes, you could go and just put a button on lead pages, or you could just build your landing page inside of Bucket. Now, to answer your other question about does it connect with Infusionsoft or does it connect with ActiveCampaign or anything like that, the answer again is yes. It does it through Zapier. Zapier is a service that connects different web softwares together. So in this case, bucket.io would be a web software, right? And then MailChimp or Infusionsoft would also be a web software. And the way you would do that is come over to integration inside the actual survey itself when you're building it and creating it. Then you would click integrate, continue with a test lead, because again, you have to have some kind of lead info to make sure it tests right. And then you would just go through Zapier and create a Zaptic connected bucket with your email software. And as you can see what I'm doing, I'm doing this super fast, again, because we want to get to reporting, but just to answer this question so you understand that everything that you see that was collected in the bucket.io reporting, you can pass that off to your own system. If it's a CRM that you're using, you can pass it off to that and analyze it there in however many ways you want to there. And then we'll do, I'm just like real quick running through this just so you can see how the connection works. So you see here, we've got ActiveCampaign, we've got Entreport, we could do Infusionsoft, and then we just connect the two through Zapier. And it's just real as simple as clicking integrate and walking through those steps there. And just to let you know too, we do have training and tutorials in our help section that will walk you through that exact process. You see we've got integrations, and I just clicked on help, integrations, and you got all kinds of stuff here. Cool? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's great, Jeremy. Thanks for explaining that. Now we can get back to your presentation.
Sure. So we've pretty much now at this point we've looked at pretty much all the analytics details inside of the discovery survey. So we've looked at the performance numbers, the conversion statistics. We've looked at the word cloud and some different ways of manipulating it to get to the insight that we're really needing to make our marketing and business decisions from the surveys. We've looked at how to go in and really understand the context of those words from the word cloud by looking at the responses and looking at the hyperscores. We talked about how bucket.io calculates that hyperscore and does even more calculations if you're asking for an email and a phone number. One thing I didn't really point out, because it's kind of hard to see, is that there's actually a difference here in the color of these rows based on whether or not it's a hyper response or not. So you can see kind of like it's like a light pink color if it's a hyper response, and it's an all white background if it's not a non-hyper response. So just again, one more thing for you to look at, just to make it easier for you, just to make a quick note. Okay, this is a hyper, this is not, right? Another thing that we covered was how to download these into a CSV. Someone asked a great question about combining surveys and the responses. This is a great way to do that. You download the CSVs from each of those surveys, and then you can have all the information at your fingertips in one place. So we've looked at pretty much the full analytics capabilities for Bucket for the discovery surveys. What I want to do real quick is walk you through the analytics for a segmentation funnel, and then we can do a Q&A and then get you guys out there so you can go get your own responses and start looking at your own reports. I'm going to jump over here to segment. So I'm going to click the segment menu at the top. So this is going to bring me all my segmentation funnels. And you see we've got one here that's got, we got one here with a couple hundred responses in it. So we're going to click on the analytics on this page. You can see, excuse me, there's the performance numbers are at the top. You can see we had a couple hundred people actually going through it. You can see out of those 214, about 90% of the people went all the way through it, and there was no opt-in screen, but you can see here you do have those numbers in front of you. Just like the discovery survey that I pointed out, one of the most important tools at your disposal in this report are these conversion statistics based on the each of the questions. So as you can see here, we've got this question 1 is a long form open-ended question, right? And so, we've got about 75% of the people completed that. And then this next question had 67% of the people completing it. Now, if this was your survey and you're looking at or if this was your segmentation funnel and you're noticing a drop like that, you're thinking, okay, what do I need to do with this question? So in our case here, we saw there was a drop off because we only offered 2 different options for classes, right? We had a morning and an afternoon. Those times may not have been acceptable for 30%, but we have now we're able to see, okay, we had a drop off here, and so if we needed to later on add a time or do whatever it takes to improve the conversion on this, you have these numbers in front of you, so you can make those decisions as you start running traffic through your segmentation funnel. And I've seen cases where, like, let's say you've got this question here that 75% of the people are filling it out, right? And then the next one, you've got a massive drop off. 20% of people are filling it out, so they're not even making it to your offer. They're never seeing your offer to put them in to opt in or to see your sales messaging. And so a lot of times what you'll want to do is address that question. Is it a good question? Should it be removed? Again, these are all, you're going to be able to make these decisions based on actual numbers. If you see major drop-offs at a question, either address the question or just remove it completely and see if you can't do what it takes to get more people to these pages, right? These are the your outcome pages where you're making your offer, or your lead capture pages where you're actually getting them to get on your email list. So does that make sense to everybody? I know I kind of sped through that part. Do we have any questions on using this reporting to optimize your segmentation funnel? Let me take a quick sip.
We haven't seen any major questions come through this thus far, Jeremy. I think you can keep going.
Cool. So one last thing I want to point out here before we get into our final Q&A is just the responses. Just like with the discovery survey, you can get access to your responses here. Now, one of the big differences is, as you can see, they don't have a hyperscore, because you're not using your segmentation funnel to develop a hyperscore or insight. What your most important outcome here that you're looking for, is how many people saw which of your outcomes. How many people saw your offer, which is your outcome page, right? And so that's why this column over here, you can start to see like how many people saw your getting started or your analytics outcome page. And again, just like with the discovery survey, you can also download these responses into a CSV if you wanted to use them for any other kind of reporting, or like we mentioned before, combining them with, say, another funnel. Because just like the discovery survey, you can't combine the results of two different segmentation funnels. But you can download both of them into a spreadsheet and do it that way if you want to. So that is the reporting capabilities of bucket.io. Again, being able to take this information and use it in a meaningful way to drive both your marketing and your optimization inside of your actual segmentation funnel itself gives you a huge leg up, because obviously the more you can optimize, the better, right? So at this point, let's do just a quick Q&A. If you do have questions on any of the things that we talked about here, yes, there will be a recording of this webinar. So if you wanted to go back and look at maybe the word cloud or anything else that we talked about, that certainly will be available to you. Like I said before, we have the knowledge base, and you can access that either going straight to help.bucket.io or just by clicking on the help button at the top of the main menu here. You can also, again, if you're sitting there looking at something and it's not making sense, or if it looks like something's missing and you just know it should be there, you can always click on this little smiley face here and start a conversation with one of our super duper helpful bucket.io specialists and support specialists that are on the line. And they'll be able to walk you through any issue you could be having while you're actually inside the app. And of course, if you've got like a major issue, or if like if something happens to your data, let's say you accidentally click edit 3 times after all the warnings on a survey or a segmentation funnel that had responses inside of it, and you wipe them out. You can let Bucket know. You can let our support know by sending if you can't get a hold of them on the chat, then definitely shoot an email over to support@bucket.io. If you're seeing anything funky in your reports or on your surveys, always can send a link out to support@bucket.io as well. And we're always happy to take a look at those and make sure you get what you need to keep moving forward. So, speaking of keeping you moving forward, I know we're getting close to the 40-minute mark here, and I want to get you guys, like I said, I know your time is super valuable, and I want to get you out of here. But first, I do want to make the invitation to you, if you've been in Bucket, if you've been using Bucket, even if it's just been for like a couple, 2 or 3 minutes, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I need help with this. If you want to get on the phone and do a one-on-one call with a bucket.io specialist, whether it's me or another one of our super smart specialists, you do have access by going through this webinar. You have access to a free one-on-one call. And like I said before, it's perfect for you if you've activated Bucket and you've made even a small start. Again, you don't have to have some completed thing. You don't even have to have any responses in your survey or in your segmentation funnel. You could have anything done. But if you feel like you have a specific question that's got you blocked, whether it's just you can't make something look right, you're not sure what goes where, you just want someone to look over the shoulder and just walk you through the process and show you what you don't know because you don't know what it is, and just want someone to show you, hey, you're doing this right, or hey, maybe adjust a few things. But again, just to get you some help. What it is, it's a 15 minutes of focused time specific to your account. And like I said before, there really isn't any problem too big or small. The big idea here is to keep you constantly moving forward. I know how it is with software when you're sitting there using it and you can't figure it out. The first thing you want to do is just say, oh, you know what, forget this. I'm done with it. I'll come back to it later. And then later happens to be a month, 30 days later, and you just didn't get the momentum that we could have solved in literally 5 to 15 minutes. And again, and I'm not going to sit here and read these out loud and just toot my own horn, but I can tell you right now, from the people that have actually gotten on these calls, it's huge. It's a big deal. It really does help if you are stuck in any little kind of way. And again, none of these are too small and none of them are too big. Again, we look to try to solve 99.99% of the issues in those 5 to 15 minutes. So again, it's a free, as a bucket.io subscriber, you have access to that. There are a limited number. We ran into that issue again this morning. So the first in, you take action. If we have had some issues with the scheduler, so I'm going to give you guys the link. And if you put in your information, and if you get to the scheduler and you don't see a slot available, I will personally reach out to you, or either myself or another specialist will personally reach out to you and get you on, excuse me, the schedule. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to put this link in the chat. In fact, you can watch me. I'm going to jump right in here and grab this. Just going to grab this one. See here, I'm just grabbing the link. And I'm going to put this in the, actually, you know what, I'm going to grab this link instead. So I'm going to grab this link, I'm going to put this in the chat, and then what I'm going to do is make sure you guys are seeing it. So chat, plug this thing in. And I just put it out there. So could you guys real quick, before we go start filling out, could you let me know if you actually saw the link, if I made it, if everyone sees it, or if I just sent it to one person? I think I did it right, but sometimes I do this.
I can let you know that I can see it, Jeremy.
Okay, cool. So great. So if anybody else can see it, could y'all just let me know, please? Great. I see it. And looks like a couple of other people see it. Yes, I see it. Got it. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. And like I said, don't freak out if you get there and there's no spaces. If there's not, I'll be reaching out to everyone who fills out this, who puts their information in here. I'll personally reach out to you and make sure you get on the schedule. So if you want to get on the schedule, even if it says there's nothing available left, I'll reach out and make sure you get on for at least the next. We'll probably do is anytime for the rest of this week, or maybe even early next week if your schedule needs it. Either way, we're going to get you on there, and we'll get you that call if you want one.
So with that in mind, everyone that's still on this call, I did just go through here, and it does look like we are still filled up on that schedule. Jeremy, quit filling these things out, and it'd be a lot easier. So please do me a quick favor. If you are interested in some one-on-one time, here in the Q&A section, just say, hey, I want some help, or I want a one-on-one. That way we can collect your information, we'll see it, and we'll make sure that we do reach out after the webinar.
Absolutely. Super important. Again, like I said, guys, we definitely want to make sure you are up and running. And like I said, I think these calls they're a lot of fun for us, and I think they're super helpful for the people that take advantage of them. But are there any other questions that have popped up in the meantime that you think we could?
We do have a few here, Jeremy, that you could probably cover as people are kind of coming in here. And ladies and gentlemen, we do have a little bit more time, so if you do have any additional questions, feel free to pop them in, and we'll try to get to them. We've got a few people ask about Google Analytics integration with bucket.io, if anybody's doing it, and what that would actually look like.
Sure. Yeah, it's great. It's a recent feature, and honestly, if you use Google Analytics, you need to do it. It's certainly, especially on your segmentation funnels, but you can do it for both, and it's exactly the same setup for both. So I'm going to jump into the segmentation here. I'm going to dive into this segmentation funnel, and the way you do it, if you're going to add Google Analytics to your segmentation funnel or your discovery survey, again, it's the exact same way. What you'll do is you'll go into each funnel. Every funnel is different, so you'll need to add it to each one. But what you can do here is go into Configure and come down to this little analytics looking thing and click on Google Analytics. And where it says Integrate Google Analytics, you'll just turn that slider to the right, so that'll turn it on. You'll paste in your Google code, and then from there you can configure, you can do whatever you want inside of the events. You can either just collect the information, or if you want to, in your Google I'm going to get this right. Google Analytics, if you want to show which questions were answered, how they were answered, you can do that by entering this information here. Just fill it in, and that'll set up for you. You can also do it on your outcome pages if you want to mark them as conversions as well. And the same thing, and I'm going to just back, I'm going to turn this off real quick and back over to Facebook. It's the same exact thing with the pixel code. When you paste your Facebook pixel in, you'll do the exact same thing. You can build your audience and track through Facebook based on the questions answered and the responses that were given to you for future use. Did that help? Does that make sense?
You know, one day I'll stop hitting mute on these calls. I do apologize. Yeah, we're getting great answers for this. Great feedback on this, Jeremy. One of the questions, the follow-up questions that we've received on Google Analytics, and we get this question a lot, is, hey, where do I get my Google Analytics code or my Facebook code or that pixel? Where do those things come from?
So you're going to get each of those from the respective service. Obviously, you're going to, for Facebook, you'll get it out of your ads manager, and a quick Google search. If you go type in, how to get your pixel code, you can find that there. I believe we may even have that in our help file. Let me jump over to help. How to set up Google Analytics with bucket.io, and yep, look, you've got the exact instructions for doing it in the help section here. So if you want to just jump over to help and go to integrations, how to set up Google Analytics with bucket.io, there's a great tutorial on how to get straight to that inside of Google Analytics, and then of course what to do with it once you have the code. Same thing, I believe, with Facebook. Let me see if we have integrate the Facebook pixel. Oh, we go one better inside of the Facebook pixel. We actually have the video that will walk you through those steps there. And again, just so you guys understand, we are constantly working to get more videos added to these tutorials. You can do it through, we have both the written tutorial, but then there's the video that will walk you through the process here. I'll back out before you start talking.
And while you bring that up, Jeremy, that's actually a great time to point people to our YouTube channel as well. We're constantly, not only do we have the FAQ section, not only do we have the help section, but we also have a YouTube channel that's going to be consistently just uploading videos there as well, just so we can give you guys some additional help and support.
Yeah, and every time you bring up the YouTube channel, I want to slap myself because I don't have the link for it. I don't actually have the link for it.
That's why I'm here, Jeremy. 1 second.
Do you have? If you can put that in the chat, that would be awesome. So yeah, and some of the things that we put on the YouTube channels is we take these webinars and we cut them up and break them up by so it's not an hour long of me cutting in and out of certain things. We keep them streamlined so that you can get straight to the answers that you're looking for. We also put replay links to these webinars on our Facebook page, which is, I do know this one, facebook.com/bucket.io. So that's how you can get these replays for the webinars, and again we have these webinars every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Central Time and 4 p.m. Central Time. Each week we do a getting started with bucket.io webinar, and then we do kind of like a webinar like this one where we go kind of deep into a specific section and a specific feature. So in this case, obviously, was the reporting. We'll do things on Zapier. I think that's the next one anyways. We do pixel integrations, analytics integrations, and stuff like that. Each week we do something specific, so if there's ever anything that you think stands out and will help you with getting your surveys or segmentation funnels moving forward, you're always welcome to jump on any one of these webinars. We're happy to have you, and every time you get on a webinar, at least for now, you're welcome to schedule a one-on-one call. So did we get that YouTube link there?
We did. I actually went ahead and posted it in the chat, so if anybody wants it, it's actually there. So you can click through and you'll be redirected to it.
Nice.
And then whenever we send out this replay, we'll try to get you guys the short URL as well.
For sure.
So guys, we're coming to the end of our time here. Jeremy, if there's anything, let's see if there's any kind of finishing up questions here. I see a couple kind of coming here at the end. So maybe one or two, and then we'll close out.
Sounds good.
So, So we've had a few questions actually specifically about word cloud. So if you could actually click back over to it so people can see where it is actually in their UI, how to access it and what it's going to show, that'd be very helpful.
Absolutely. So you're going to find your word cloud so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to come up here to discover, and then you're going to find the survey that you want to analyze, right? So in this case, we've got this bucket.io questionnaire. It's got 80 responses. This is the one we were looking at. So what I'll do here is come down to where it says analytics. I'll click that. And that's how you get to your reporting. Then you just scroll to the bottom of this first page where it says stats, and this is your word cloud. And don't forget, if you see words inside of the word cloud, like, smiley face or how or anything like that, remember, you can always remove those words from this words dropdown. Make sense? Does it help?
That does, and I think that's exactly what people were looking for. So one final question here, and it's the one that we've gotten a few times. We didn't really go into a lot of depth in this specific webinar on the detailed responses, the detailed analytics for individual questions. Right. So if you click into one of the questions, you'll see that there's actually some responses there for each one of these. So why don't you walk us through what this data actually is, so people can understand, hey, this is non-hyper responses versus hypers, and then the percentage on each one.
Sure. So what you're looking at here, and you're right, I apologize, I just forgot to click the drop down. So anytime you've got a multiple choice question here, you're able to see just a detail, in detail, like how many people completed it, and how many of those people that completed that response were hyper versus non-hyper. And as you can see here, the hypers are in a darker color, and the non-hypers are in a lighter color, right? So what you can do is highlight, like mouse over one of the questions so you remember exactly which question is in here. So in this case, we're saying this person said, I'm going through module 1. So I believe the question we asked was, where are you at in the Ask with the Masterclass, right? So the two biggest answers in this case were I'm going through module 2, I'm going through module 1, and honestly, if you were just to kind of combine them all together, it was people that were in kind of those first two modules, right? And then we can see out of those what percentage were hypers and versus the percentages that were non-hypers. So we can see our most hypers were going through module 2 and going through the beginning part of module 1.
Right. So the other way to think about this as well is each one of those charts that Jeremy has is going to equal 100%. And then the percentages within each color are the percentage of non-hyper responses versus hyper responses. And so, Jeremy, why don't you explain just a little bit? I know this isn't the Ask Method company, but why don't you explain just a little bit about the difference between a non-hyper and a hyper responsive? I know you mentioned that earlier.
Yeah. So, like we mentioned earlier, and I'm just going to jump back over here so we can actually have numbers so you can see what a hyper response is versus a non-hyper response. So, the hyper responsives are the people that go out and really fill in the open-ended questions more than the average, right? So these people that took the time to really tell you what the issue was, those are the ones you need to be paying attention to the most, right? So you can see here we score it based on both word count and completion. Again, like I mentioned earlier, those numbers would also be adjusted if you were asking for a phone number and an email address as well. And so we're looking at here when we're looking at those charts. When it says hyper, we're looking at somebody in this top 20% here, right? So we've got these people that are hyper responses. When we're looking at the chart, we're knowing if it says hyper response, it's somebody that really filled out a good portion of the open-ended questions. So let's kind of jump back over here real quick. And so now we're seeing this out of the people that said I'm going through module 1, a good chunk of them, 30% of them were hyper responses. We know that if you're in this module 1, and you're a hyper, we're paying attention to what's happening to you in module 1, right? And so that's kind of like, that's how you're looking at that. That's what these numbers represent, are the people that both filled out these darker numbers are from the people that really filled out the open-ended questions, and the lighter numbers are the ones that kind of they filled it out obviously, but didn't they're more kind of like benchmarks just to validate what we think we learned from some of these people that really filled it out completely and gave us a really large response. Does that make sense?
Great. Yeah, I think that does make sense. And for anybody that does continue to have questions on this part, realize once again, like Jeremy said, we do have some one-on-one times that are available, so we can go into even more detail with you if needed, just so we can answer those questions in full. Once again, I want to thank everybody that's joined this webinar with us today. If you're here for just this one, great. If you're here twice with us today, it was a pleasure to host you twice. Jeremy, do you have any final thoughts before we close up?
No, and again, just to touch base kind of back on this one section, if you do want someone to look at these numbers from your responses with you, that's a great thing to take advantage of in a one-on-one call. So if you haven't done it already, definitely get signed up for that if you have some responses in there and you haven't already signed up for the call.
Perfect. And so as we close up here, guys, we are going to leave the window open here for just a little bit longer, the chat window. If you'd like to schedule some one-on-one time with us, just once again reply in that chat box and say, hey, I'd like some help, or I want a one-on-one. We will be taking your name and we'll be reaching out to you after this webinar. Thanks again for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar.
Take care, everybody.